Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. Today I am creating the third page in my napkin journal. I am cheating just a little bit today. I'm going to be using some rice paper instead of a napkin. It is it's a similar technique, so I'm hoping that you'll just allow me that. This rice paper really spoke to me and I felt like it was what I needed to create with tonight. So these are some of the other supplies that I'll be using. The quote there is, "She whispered it softly under the stars." So hopefully I'll be able to talk a little bit about that as we go through the video. I'm going to be using some Arteza gouache. I love watercolor. It is my favorite medium, and so I really struggle with gouache because basically it is an opaque watercolor, so it is not as transparent as regular watercolor, and I struggle with that. So I have not played a lot with it, but I thought I'd give it a try today. This is a new stencil. It's called Postal, and I used it in this video and I would not recommend it. It actually broke and tore in a couple different places as I was using it, and that is really frustrating to me. So I'm not going to recommend it. So I went ahead and gessoed my page, and I'm going to come in and do some background stamping here, kind of playing around with a couple of different script stamps to decide which one I wanted. And I'll be stamping that with my archival ink in coffee color. I started with that little ink pad. I'm not sure what I was thinking because I do have the large pad in coffee color, so I'm going to show you that here in just a second. So I just want to create some background interest on the left-hand side of the page, not on the right. I believe I do end up going a little bit on the top and the bottom of the right-hand page, but you'll see that here in just a few moments. I thought I was done here. I do end up coming in and filling in a little bit more of that background with some more script a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere my rice paper with my Liquitex matte medium. And I'm just going to apply it there in the center of the right-hand side of the page. And this rice paper is pretty durable, so I'm not having to be as fragile or gentle with it. It's not as fragile as some other rice paper and tissue paper and napkins often are. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some matte medium over the top as well. Paris and France have a lot of meaning in my story, and so that's why I chose to create around this. I'm finding that as I receive more and more healing in my journey, things that once were difficult and painful are now a source of inspiration and joy, and that is what happened with this this particular part of my story. So. And here is where I'm coming in with a little bit more of that script stamp. I wanted to fill in a little bit more of the background. I don't tend to do white very well, and then I'm going to go a little bit at the bottom there and then a little bit at the top as well, just to kind of tie the two pages together. And then I'm also going to be doing just a bit of collaging. I have some music pages from an old book. It's a German book. And in my life and my story, German and French intersected, and so they both mean a lot to me, and they again are a big part of my story. So I decided I would go ahead and incorporate them both in this page, and just full transparency. I really didn't know what was going to happen as I was creating this, what I was going to feel, what I was going to be inspired to do until I began doing it. And it is remarkable what art can do for us and what just persevering through our journey and our story does. As we move through it, we gain insight and we gain more healing as we face into things. And so as I did this process, I really felt that happening, and it was really pretty cool. So I'm going to went ahead and applied those collage papers. Again, that's the German music pages to the left-hand side of the page, and then applying that other little piece of rice paper on top of that. This was originally a real-time real-time video, but it got a little bit long, especially for a journal page. So I went ahead and decided to do a voiceover. So I went ahead and shut off the camera and dried my page just to make sure everything was nice and set. And then I grabbed a piece of lace, and I decided that that really was something that I was potentially wanting to use, and I did end up using it, as you'll see as we move along. I dug through my stamps and found this beautiful, intricate kind of lace stencil, my goodness, stamp. And I'm going to be using my black archival ink and stamping that here and there around the page. The first stamping I just did with my hands, and then I did get my stamp block out and do the other stamping because I didn't get a very good impression. When I'm using it for background, I'm not interested in a perfect impression, but I wanted something a little bit more visible and crisp than that one at the top. So I just love this this stencil. I think it's really fitting for this page. And I did come down a little bit on that part just because I wanted to make sure that I could see it once I put the lace on. And I think I can in the final piece. I'll have to look at that later after I'm done with the voiceover. But and then I caught the light and fluffy modeling paste out just because it's habit and I didn't intend to use it. I want to use the Heidi Swap gold texture paste. So that's what I'm going to be using. And I'm going to be using this new stencil. And it's from Craft Treat. And it's called Postal. And again, I would not recommend it. I was quite disappointed. And so my encouragement to you is don't go cheap on stencils because they should really last you a really long time. And I just got this and I used it one time and it's already broken in several places. So that's really disappointing. So I won't be ordering from them again or that brand. So I'm just going to go around the piece just here and there, kind of wherever it feels right to balance out the page with a little bit of texture. So I'm going to go, and then there I'm going on and on about this green something that keeps showing up in my studio. It's been happening for a little over a week. I don't know where it's coming from because as I was creating this piece, I had nothing around me with that color. It's like an ink. It's like an acrylic ink or something. So here I'm looking around my desk on everything, trying to figure out where that is coming from again, because it actually dripped on my rice paper there. You could see on top of that flower. So I was trying to solve that mystery and I don't know. I'm going to have to pull out all my inks and see if something's leaking but I didn't have any inks out on my table. So it's a mystery. So anyway, that sad story behind us. I'm going to continue to do the stenciling around the page just here and there. And I'm going to do just a larger swath of texture right there in that wider part of that page. I do love the postage look of this though, so I guess I can't be too sorry or sad about the stencil. I'm sure that I can still use it, but like that cart postal word there, it was completely torn and it came that way. And so there's no definition to the word at all. And that's disappointing. So basically when I use stenciling like this, I'm basically looking for some texture so that when I apply my color, when I colorize the page, it's going to have something to meet up with on the page rather than just a flat surface, if that makes any sense. So I'm just using the excess texture paste and kind of going around the edges, kind of like a gilding type of look. And I absolutely love how it turned out in the final piece, which you'll be able to see in the still photos at the end. So got some good photos of this project. And again, this is part 3 of my napkin journal series, so super excited to be able to do these. But I was looking through my napkins and just nothing was feeling inspiring to me, and I really wanted to get another video out to use, so I went ahead and went through my rice papers, and this is the one that really spoke to me. So there's just a close-up of that texture, as well as the bits that are around the edges. Really, really beautiful. And now I'm going to go ahead and play with the gouache. And this was a little intimidating because I haven't really done it before in mixed media, so I was a little bit nervous. And but I played around, did a little bit of color mixing. I didn't have these colors swatched out, so some of them were not what I expected. For instance, the gray, I pulled out a gray and it was definitely not what I would have wanted if I had been able to pick from a swatch of colors. So, and there I was just adding some burnt umber to the red because the red was way too bright in my opinion. So as you can see there, it is super bright. So I just coming in, bringing in a little bit of that burnt umber, and I'm going to be just doing this around the page here and there. I'm going to kind of just let you watch the process. This was an experiment. I didn't really know how it was going to turn out or really what I wanted it to look like. So I'm going to be going back and forth between the crimson, the burnt umber, the deep green, and the gray. And so you can just kind of watch that magic happen. I do want to say I love how the gouache responded to the texture, similar to a really fluid acrylic or an ink, kind of the same effect, but just a different medium. And I think it's fun to experiment with the different supplies that you have in your stash, especially if they're things that you've not really used before, such as the gouache. For me, I hadn't really played with it and just felt inspired to go ahead and give that a try. So I'm going to let you go ahead and just watch this process. So as you can see, I'm applying the gouache in a pretty watered down fashion and then using my paper towel or a baby wipe to kind of pick some of that color up. And then here is where I'm coming in with the gray. And it was a very bluish gray, so a cool gray, I believe. Initially, I really liked it. I liked the color. It was a beautiful color, but it didn't really go with the composition in terms of the focal image there with the Eiffel Tower and the kind of that Paris themed stuff. So I do continue to work with it until I get it to the way I want it to be. I love the fact that with mixed media, and especially in our art journals, we can just play and experiment and decide what we like and what we don't like. And I just love that, the freedom that is found in that. So that's what I definitely experienced doing this page. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. So here I'm coming in with the deep green. It was really not the color that I was looking for. It had a very blue tone to it, which I would have preferred something a little bit warmer. I don't do a lot of experimenting with color mixing, not in this fashion. Like, I can color mix watercolor all day long, but for some reason the gouache just is a different thing for me, and so I didn't experiment with it in terms of color mixing as much as I would have with watercolor. I guess because I probably wasn't working with the primaries. If I'd been working with primaries, I would have been fine, but I didn't expect the colors to turn out like they did, so I needed to do a little bit more experimenting with the coloring, or the color mixing, excuse me. So now I'm just coming in with the burnt umber in the gouache and just kind of pouncing that, just creating some texture and color on the surface there in those lighter places. I'm just continuing to play with that until I get the end result that I want, which, given that I didn't really know what I wanted, this was definitely a time of experimenting and just playing. And I love that. As I've mentioned before, I love that about art journaling and mixed media in general, because it really is just a playground to just let yourself be free to try new things and know that it's okay if things don't turn out quite the way that you wanted. So, and that was definitely the case with this particular project. So now I'm going to come in with some golden fluid acrylic in iridescent gold fine and just use that around the piece. Oh, sorry, I showed it and then I didn't use it. So there's my sentiment. Again, it says, "She whispered it softly under the stars." And I'm giving that a coat of matte medium and going to let that dry while I work on the rest of the project here. So sorry about that confusion. And I'm applying the lace with my Liquitex Heavy Gel. And then I did decide I didn't have very much of a piece there and thought it would be really pretty under the Eiffel Tower, but I didn't want to cover up that beautiful texture of that postmark there on the far right hand side. So I do go ahead and put it up at the top. Just kind of a little curtain. Really beautiful. And then here I'm just coming in with that iridescent gold fine, just with my finger kind of skipping over all that texture. And again, in the final photos, you'll be able to see that. It's a little bit hard to see against this background because there's a lot of color going on and a lot of dark stuff going on, but it is really beautiful. It needed that. I needed to be able to bring back that gold that I lost with the texture paste. So. And then just coming around those edges too, and I love how it really accentuated the texture paste that I had already applied there on the edges of the page. Really beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and dry that really quick. I thought I had cut that out. Goodness gracious. You don't need to see drying, but here it is anyway. So I do give it a good dry, and then I come in with a little bit of that iridescent gold paint around the edges of this, just kind of here and there. I had to grab my palette knife to hold that in place because it kept blowing away. So there it went. Oh goodness, so funny. If you can't laugh, what can you do, right? So here is where I'm going to come in with a little bit of that gold around the edges. And then I tend to not like to just do stark white for my sentiments on a journal page or anything for that matter. But in this case, I think it was really good because I had that white lace, which was really stark against the background, which is good because it's good contrast. So I was glad that the sentiment actually stayed white, and I think it was a really good addition. Adding just a little bit more gold there, apparently. So now I'm going to go ahead and apply that with my Liquitex matte medium. There's not a lot of texture going on in the space that I'm going to put this, so I was able to just use the matte gel, or the matte medium, excuse me. I was kind of trying to decide where I wanted that. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Again, thank you for coming on over to the channel and continuing to watch and support my channel. It allows me to be able to create more and more. It's very encouraging for me as an artist. I know that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and not everything I create is going to be just adored. But what I want to be able to share is just the process of experimenting and playing, and I hope that that's what you were able to get from this. So here I'm just talking about the texture, just absolutely gorgeous, the way that this turned out. And that German script there was just so pronounced. I thought that was really interesting, not intentional at all, but definitely a part of my story. So thank you so much for watching. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.